We are at a point in history where we again need to discuss these matters.
Seit 30 Jahren arbeiten Michael Elmgreen aus Dänemark und Ingar Dragset aus Norwegen als Künstlerduo zusammen. Ihre Installationen, Skulpturen und Performances stellen traditionelle Vorstellungen von Männlichkeit in Frage. In Helsingør, nördlich von Kopenhagen, haben sie hen kreiert, dänisch für er. Eine sensible, schmächtige Figur aus Edelstahl, die auf einem Stein sitzt und aufs Meer hinausschaut. Elmgreen und Dragsets männliche Interpretation der kleinen Meerjungfrau. Bei seiner Enthüllung 2012 hat dieser feminine Mann als neue Sehenswürdigkeit in einer industriell geprägten Hafenstadt für hitzige Debatten gesorgt. Seitdem hat sich gesellschaftlich viel getan in unserem Umgang mit Gender und Identität. Das hätte man vielleicht vor wenigen Jahren noch gesagt. Aber spätestens seit dem erneuten Wahlsieg des US-amerikanischen Präsidenten scheint diese Entwicklung sich zurückzudrehen. Elmgreen und Dragset sagen deshalb, jetzt erst recht. Ich bin Johanna Voss und ihr hört den Monopol-Podcast. Hi!
Kunst und Leben. Der Monopol-Podcast von detektor.fm.
Ab dem 20. Februar ist das Künstlerduo mit der Ausstellung Momentan nicht erreichbar in der Galerie Max Hetzler in Berlin zu sehen. Wie oft in ihren Werken ist auch in dieser Ausstellung der kleine Junge zentraler Protagonist. Er sitzt, steht, wandert, schaut in den Spiegel, denkt nach über sich und die Welt. Elmgreen und Dragsets Skulpturen hinterfragen das Coming of Age als Junge in einer patriarchalen Welt. Verletzlichkeit ist hier eine Tugend. Elke Buhr, Chefredakteurin des Monopol-Magazins, hat das Künstlerduo vor der Eröffnung ihrer Ausstellung in Berlin getroffen. Ein Gespräch über Männlichkeit, das Brechen mit Traditionen und darüber, warum es manchmal ein Vorteil ist, zu zweit zu sein.
Michael and Ingar, you just came here. We are in Berlin in the Monopol office. And where you come from right now?
Right now we came from Max Hetzler Gallery here in Berlin on Potsdamer Straße, where we're installing our next exhibition, which opens in February this year.
Which is titled Momentan nicht erreichbar.
So I'm happy I could get hold of you. I'm lucky.
We answer for once. The exhibition opens 20th of February. Mm-hmm. On the ground floor you will meet a big immersive installation with a bronze figure in the middle, a lonely wanderer in a snow landscape. And then there's a tree, a dead tree with a vulture sitting in the other end of the gallery room. And that's that on the ground floor. You go up and approach the first level galleries. In Max Hetzler there are 2 levels. And there's a bridge into the galleries. And on that bridge there will be a bronze figure of a photographer photographing the person who is walking in the snow.
And then we have divided up a smaller long room at the gallery. So there's 2 spaces you can visit. In one of them there are 2 boys, 2 kids. One of them is sitting on a washing machine. So we have rethought the idea of the plinth a little bit. And he's looking rather contemplative, maybe even a little bit sad, very thoughtful, a little introvert. Something's happening in his mind, something is spinning around in his head. And at the opposite end from him, there's a boy looking at himself in the mirror, but he's wearing his mother's high heels, his stilettos, or her stilettos. So he's sort of like trying out a little bit, sort of other ideas of identities, maybe wondering about his own future.
Mm. There are a lot of boys in your works. Why? Why is that so interesting?
Young male persons, the kids are symbolizing there's still hope for a certain change of the masculine roles that we still suffer from in today's world. And we try to depict masculine identities that are a bit different from in classic figuration of sculpture. Sculptures that have a more kind of poetic aura or are softer and more introvert, as Inga says. But we also have a young adult in the last room, a motorcycle deliverer. We all get our food now and then when we are lazy delivered. And he had an accident with his motorcycle, so he's standing with his helmet on looking at the broken motorcycle.
Okay, which can also be a metaphor for masculinity.
Yes, that's
Obviously.
true. Exactly.
I got it. Yeah. Do you see yourselves in the boys sometimes?
Yeah, I think at some point, getting older, I mean, we're not like young and emerging artists any longer since a while. But as life sort of, moves on, you start thinking more about your past somehow, not necessarily in a sentimental way, but maybe in a way of trying to understand yourself better and yourself in relation to the world around us and how the world changes as well. And a lot of the stories we tell about when we show these children in different situations are based on personal experiences. Absolutely.
The scene with the boy trying out his mom's stilettos and having a lipstick next to him is an image that we both recall. Like trying on,
both of you.
Yeah, trying on your mom's clothes when you would be alone as something that would be magical. I think it had even not anything to do with a pre-sexuality. It was just like the mom character was such a magic figure for you as a kid. So trying on things that she would wear as a small kid was kind of magical. It was, would you turn into her? Would you also be that kind of person?
Yeah, I did that.
Yeah.
I did that too. And I wonder if I also put on my father's clothes, but probably not, because he wasn't so important. He wasn't so around, and he wasn't the one who had the power in the family, obviously. No. So it would be much more interesting to become the mother, right?
Yeah, absolutely. This absence of a father, I think, especially for our generation, is very prevalent.
But we didn't know that the American president, whose name we will not mention in this program, in his inauguration speech was saying there are only two genders, male and female. And in that context, of course, the work becomes even more urgent.
Yeah.
Because one of the few things that has had a little bit of progress in our recent culture is that our notion of gender politics and sexual politics have widened, and we have got a more nuanced kind of view on what you identify with. And it seems like there's certain powers in the political spectre today that wants to beam us back to the 50s or something like that.
Yeah. It's incredible. I mean, I was going to talk to you about that, obviously, because maybe 5 years ago or so, I would have thought, well, all this gender thing, it's so obvious. Why do we still need it? Why does art still need to make that point all the time? And yeah, now, what should I say? It's worse than ever, isn't it?
Yeah. No.
I mean, LGBTQ plus organizations in Russia are labeled as terrorist organizations. So we are at a point in history where we again need to discuss these matters.
Did you expect that force of a backlash?
No, I don't think we expected that thing would swing so far to the right and so conservative as what we see nowadays. And of course, we couldn't foresee the impact that social media has had on people's mind and the way people think. So it's pretty scary, and it's of course very important now to sort of stick together as artists and within the art scene and keep on reminding each other of these values that I'm sure will not disappear. I think we can't move back to former times. You know, we already come much further, as Michael said, in understanding of gender, for instance, and understanding of race, understanding of post-colonialism, and you know, it's not going to move back, I'm sure. But maybe this is like the last cry of a certain generation. There will again be progress. I think
it's true what you said. We took it all for granted.
Yeah.
Just a few years back. Today we can't.
Yeah, it's all. Yeah, it's like starting anew. It's and that when I was going to actually congratulate you, because it's 30 years now. 30 years that you're working together. Yep. Did you have your birthday party yet?
We haven't, but we have actually prepared for redoing our first performance.
You are?
Yeah. It's
somebody jumping out of a cake?
No, it's a much slower process. It's the very first performance we did in 1995 was at the Charlottenborg Kunsthall in Copenhagen, and it consisted of a very, very long knitted scarf, you could say, or like a long cloth, where I'm knitting at one end of this white cloth and Michael is unraveling at the other side. So it tells quite a bit of like a collaborative process already back then.
And that was then?
That was then, and we just reproduced like 100-meter long white cloth, so we're ready to do. Okay,
so how are your knitting skills? Are they still okay?
A little bit rusty, so I'm going to practice a bit before we get it.
I'm still good in unraveling.
I bet you are. It's also a nice metaphor for what we all do with our relationships. I mean, but the other thing that I would be curious about is how to build a career for 30 years, you know, because I will always see, you see people like they're emerging artists and everybody's interested in them, and then there's always this phase when everybody's going, yeah, we know them. Can we see something else, you know? And then you have to kind of come back through those phases, right? Or did you never feel this?
I think we've been lucky being two. That makes you more confident and less impressed about positive reactions from the world. So you more or less keep on doing what you want. And then we also have tried not to repeat ourselves. Actually not because of any noble reasons, but because we are easily bored. So we have changed our practice over and over again, done different kind of things. When we did performance, they always called us if they want to spice up an exhibition with a little bit of live activities, and then we, in the end, said, we want to be boring too. We make our sculpture, our first sculpture. Then we did sculptures that had to do with the white cube for quite a while, a critique of the standardized format of galleries and museum rooms, the white cube. And from that we started doing whole room installations. It looked like interiors or hospital rooms or subway stations. And then we started our fascination of the long tradition of figurative sculpture, and now we mix everything and use all kind of working methods, but we haven't been sticking to only one way of doing art.
Yes.
And in between we've also done curatorial jobs, so to speak. We did the Istanbul Biennial, for instance, some years ago, 2017. Another group shows that we were responsible for, around in the world. And this also gives you a break from yourself in a way, you know, and it gives us a possibility to deal with themes that we are interested in from other perspectives than we can sort of deal with them from. I mean, we're two men of a certain age from the Northern Hemisphere. So it's very interesting to go into dialogue for us with people that, you know, come from the global South or have different genders, different cultural backgrounds than ourselves.
Well, one of your most famous installations would be The Collectors in Venice in 2009. Yeah. And I remember there's the collector in the swimming pool, he's dead, which was very cruel and very funny. Well, and then in the opening days, in Venice, there are all those collectors coming and looking at themselves dead in the pool. So how were the reactions? How do you remember that?
For us, first of all, we were so lucky because Ingar comes from Norway and I come from Denmark. And both Denmark and Norway decided the same year to ask us if we wanted to do
really?
the
That's funny.
Representation.
And they didn't know from each other?
Not from the beginning, yeah.
That's really funny.
So we got two pavilions and they were next to each other, so they looked like neighbors. Mm-hmm. And the pavilions at the Giardini, at the Venice Biennial, they look a little bit like posh houses. Like the Giardini is a upscale neighborhood. So we knew that we wanted to turn these houses into homes, domestic settings. And then why not collectors' homes, two different types of collectors. There was a family, there was quite a breaking up with each other in the family, but collecting art in maybe a little bit neurotic way. And then there was a very flamboyant gay bachelor collector in the Nordic pavilion that looks a bit more like a Californian case study house. And we wanted to make them collectors because in the media there had been so much about just the prices of artworks, auction prices, and who would be the hot artist to collect and who would not be the hot artist to collect. But the history of collecting is so much more varied and much more interesting. I mean, like, art collectors are for a big part, at least the more classic ones, people who have an obsession, who collect not to earn money, not to resell the works in auction, not to be cool, or map themselves, but because they have almost a compulsive disorder that they need these objects around them, or to support different practices that align with their own identities or their own beliefs. Collectors who collect maybe mainly female artists to support these positions, or queer collectors who support queer artists. There's so many different reasons for collecting that is so much more vivid than this mediation of the art market that is only like prices and secondary sales.
And I think there's the third category, which are your works in the public, your public installation. And I think that must be also, you have this one installation that is referencing the, how do you say, the Meerjungfrau, or is it in English?
Yeah.
The mermaid?
The mermaid, yeah, the little mermaid in Copenhagen.
How does it feel? I mean, this is an icon, the mermaid, isn't it? Yes. And tell us what you did with it. And
we got a commission in the city of Elsinore in the north of Denmark. It's about 45 minutes from Copenhagen, the capital. And that town has been an industrial town with a shipyard in the center for many years, but the shipyard has now become like a library and a maritime museum and so on. Behind that again, there's the famous Kronborg castle that is the setting also for Hamlet, for Shakespeare's Hamlet. It used to be the capital back in the day sometime in Denmark. So all these stories or the history of the place inspired us to do a male version of the famous Little Mermaid in Copenhagen. We cast a stone, copied the stone of the Little Mermaid, but cast a full figure here in Berlin. A young man sitting in exactly the same position with his legs to the side as the Little Mermaid. We were, to be honest, a little bit nervous about the reaction, since this has become such a national symbol in a way, the Little Mermaid. But what happened was that people got very upset about this man being so effeminate, and that this feminine pose did not fit to the history of this site as the shipyard and what a metal worker would look like. That was a big surprise to us, because Denmark is, of course, seen as a very liberal country, and took us all by surprise in a way, and it reached national news where we had to go and defend this work.
Okay, but then people got used to it? Or was it?
Now they're happy with it. They have it as a logo for the city. It's on their main website, and there's a coffee brand that has it on their bags and whatever. But before it was installed, people were very upset.
Okay.
It was really a heated debate.
Yeah, but it's great that it's there, isn't it? I mean, if there's only 5 little boys that maybe feel reassured in their femininity, whatever.
What was sweet in the end is that also a lot of the former workers at the shipyard were very impressed by the metalwork itself. It's cast in stainless steel and highly polished by very, very skilled craftsmen here in Germany.
You could catch them with a craft.
Yes, exactly. Why not? There's many ways of communicating, isn't it?
Beautiful. So keep up the good work, working on the male identity and softening the borders. And so maybe just tell me what's up this year for you. So what else is coming? When can people see your work and where?
Well, the first place to see our work here in Germany is at Galerie Max Hetzler on Potsdamer Straße. It opens 20th of February.
Until the end of February, there is a show up still in Korea, in Seoul.
Cool.
Called Spaces. So if you are...
If I happen to be in Seoul, I'll pass by, sure.
In that area, yeah.
So congratulations, and we're looking forward to see all that. And thank you for being here.
Thank you for inviting us.
Thank you for inviting us.
Das war Elke Buhr, Chefredakteurin vom Monopol-Magazin, im Gespräch mit dem skandinavischen Künstlerduo Michael Elmgreen und Ingar Dragset. Ihre aktuelle Ausstellung, momentan nicht erreichbar, könnt ihr ab dem 20. Februar in der Galerie Max Hetzler in Berlin sehen. Neue Folgen von Kunst und Leben, dem Podcast in Kooperation mit dem Monopol-Magazin, gibt es 2-mal im Monat. Wenn euch gefällt, was wir hier machen, dann folgt uns doch gerne im Podcatcher eurer Wahl. Die Redaktion für diese Folge hatte Sarah Marie Plikat und ich bin Joanna Voss. Danke euch fürs Zuhören und bis zum nächsten Mal. Ciao.
Kunst und Leben, der Monopol-Podcast von Detektor.fm.